Friends, you have tuned into Tunnel of Dark Narrations. Thank you, I'm Turk Strongman. If you desire continued horror, look here for at least one new video per week, usually on Fridays. Please hit the thumb up below here. It'll show everybody that you like anything that you like. And I humbly request that you subscribe to the channel and click on the new upload notification bell. But also remember to keep checking back just in case the new upload notification feature doesn't actually notify you. Our present story, The Black Stew, by Tunnel of Dark Narrations, arises from actual events. And beware, it contains adult themes and horrible humor. Unavoidably, for they are the facts of the case. And without them, there'd be no story. And for us, here, right after the sound of the crystal bowl, there is only the story. Now on with the show. You thought that was the crystal bowl, didn't you? One day in New York City, I had decided but I wanted to be able to relate better to homeless people. So, I had noticed that a lot of the homeless people in New York City were more well-informed about life and current events than were the majority of the people back in the little town I grew up in. So I wanted to figure out what it was like to be one of them, one of the New York City homeless people. So I started hanging out on the streets more. I'd go over to 5th Street and hang out on the corner where there was a homeless guy I knew. His name was Merlin. His dad owned the Palace Hotel, which was right next to CBGB's on 3rd Avenue down there near Houston Street. The Palace was a dump. As I recall, it cost about, $10 a night to sleep in there. It was pretty much just an open floor with partitions, and in each partition there was a little mattress, and that's about it. Except for bed bugs. They were known to be especially bad in there. Merlin could have stayed there for free because his dad owned it. But he could have even had a decent spot in there, but he didn't want it. He said he didn't want it. He'd rather be homeless. He liked it that way in his cardboard box on 5th Street. So, there he'd be, and the wind would blow by, the snow would blow by, the rain would blow by, and the newspapers would blow by. He'd read the newspapers, and every day as people would walk home from work, they'd bring Merlin food. They would exchange it for the news, which Merlin would tell them. Merlin was well-informed and well-fed. So I hung out with Merlin sometimes because he was a curiosity and because he was happy. So eventually I figured I had to do more than just hang out with Merlin. I found my own street corner and I got my own cardboard box. And I hung out there in my own corner in my own box for a few days. But I still had my own apartment. Now there was the problem. I didn't really feel anything different. I didn't feel homeless. I had to do more. So I called my phone company and I canceled my account. But I still didn't feel any more homeless. So I called Con Edison and I canceled my account. I still had my apartment. No phone or electricity now, but I had my apartment. I sat in my box for a few more days. I still didn't feel like I knew anything more about being homeless than I did before. Well, I still had my job, too, doing construction work, so I quit my job. For money, I panhandled now, and I did okay with that. But then I realized that homeless people didn't have ID cards, so I cut mine up and I threw it away. And I stayed up in there in my box for a month or two like that. I was starting to understand what it feels like to be homeless. I figured that now I was getting somewhere. That from now on in life, I was going to understand homeless people. I thought it was important to understand such things. So now I was going to understand this thing. But I wasn't quite all the way there yet. I still had my apartment. But I hadn't paid rent for a couple of months now, so soon I didn't have my apartment either. And now I sat out there in the sidewalk in my box, and I realized two things. Number one, I finally understood homeless people. And number two, in doing all of that to understand what it's like to be homeless, I had achieved something I hadn't actually meant to achieve. I was homeless. Well, one of the problems with being homeless is getting a bath. I was starting to stink pretty bad. My skin was getting really itchy. But I also learned that after about 5 days of dirt piling up on my skin and sweat mixing in with it and smog because it was summer, well, the skin stops being itchy. Instead, now my skin now had a protective layer on it, so it wasn't all that bad anymore. But the panhandling stopped working so well. People now keep their distance. They treated me like I was crazy or something, but I wasn't crazy. I wasn't even a real homeless person, you know. I tried to tell some people I wasn't really a real homeless person. I was just doing a social experiment, but they didn't believe me. Then I realized that any homeless person could have told them that. Anyway, I was getting to the point, well, I had to go eat at soup kitchens now, so there I'd be in line with all the real homeless people, and they would think I was a real homeless person too, and they'd talk to me about all the homeless people issues like I give a damn about the homeless people issues, but I soon figured I better give a damn because these were the only people who were going to talk to me anymore. Well, one day I went to a soup kitchen as usual, and the line was especially long there. I asked what was for dinner. I just asked the guy in front of me if he knew what was for dinner. He asked the guy in front of him. He asked the woman in front of him, and so on up the line. And then the answer came back down the line. We were having black stew. That's what they were calling it, black stew, whatever that is. But I thought the guy in front of me said black stew. I told him, yeah, I know they feed everybody here, all the races of people, but what are we having for dinner? He said black stew. I said, yeah, I know blacks too. I said, I don't care. I'm not even black. I just want to know what we're having. Well, he looked like he was about half black, and now he's like he was about half pissed off too. He said, no, dickwad, we're having black stew, like black soup. I said, oh, black stew. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. I asked him what's in it. He said he's not sure, but he thinks it's really oily and kind of alien or something. I said it sounds deadly, but hell, I'm hungry. I could eat a horse like a pile of amino acids or something. He said he doesn't think there are any amino acids in it. He said it's just black stew. Well, I got out of line. I decided to go get a shower. I'd already showered over the last few weeks here and there in one person's place and then another among the people who used to like me in their apartments. But my welcome might run out along with my luck, so I had to go over to Allen Street. I had to go over there to use the bathhouse, the Allen Street bathhouse. I've been there a couple times before going homeless. I had just wanted to see what it was like over there. My first time there, well, I learned it was a pretty dangerous place over there. It was free, and it was just this big, huge room with stalls. And each stall was a little shower spot with a curtain, and outside the curtain, a little bench you could put her clothes on. The stall walls and the shower walls didn't go all the way down to the floor, and the floor was so sloped. It was sloped so that all the water ran over to the middle of the room somewhere. Like I said, it was a big room, probably a couple of hundred shower stalls in there. So all the shower water kind of ran together. And somebody had told me that if you don't have shower shoes, you better take along a cardboard box and open it up and put it on the floor and stand on that so you don't get rotten feet. So I took along a box because I didn't have shower shoes. Another problem in there I heard about, well, actually I learned about my first time there, is if you don't guard your clothes while you're in the shower, somebody's going to take them. And then what are you going to do? Well, I'd caught the person just in time. I'd peeked out of my shower and I saw him and he'd run off. But anyway, instead of eating the black stew, I went over there for a shower. I opened up my box and I put it out on the floor and I got off my clothes and put them on the bench and I stepped under the shower. I didn't have any soap. I didn't care. I just needed to rinse off. Next thing you know, I look down at the water and I see blood running by. So I got out and I put my clothes on and I ran over to another area. And I look into another stall. Now, this was supposed to be men only in here. But I look in there, and then there's this black hooker naked standing there with one foot up on the bench, and she's pulling a syringe out of her vagina. It was pretty gross looking. So I found another stall and took my shower. I got done as quickly as I could, and I went back outside. That's when I see some guy walking around with nice clothes on. He obviously wasn't even from around there. He obviously wasn't even from the city. He looked lost. He asked me which way to CBGB's. I said, man, are you trying to get yourself killed? He said, no, I'm looking for CBGB's. I said, well, if you're not trying to get yourself killed, I know where you can get some black stew. He said, no, I'm not trying to get myself killed, and I'm not looking for blacks either. I'm just looking for CBGBs. So I told him he'd gone the wrong way, and I asked him if he had any sour shoes. He said no. So I told him CBGB's is closed up, but I know where he can get a room for tonight at the Palace Hotel. And then I started to laugh. I told him I was just joking around. And if he's not trying to get killed, he should get over to CBGB's as quickly as he can. I told him how to get there. I said, it's right next to the Palace Hotel. You can't miss it. Well, then I run into the guy who'd been in front of me in the soup kitchen line. He looked pretty freaked out right now, and his eyes were solid black. He acted like something bad had got a hold of him. He came toward me like he wanted something, or like he was trying to get away from something. He reached for me, but I got out of his way. And then I saw the man who was in front of him, and I saw the woman who was in front of that man, and they'd been in front of me in the line, you know, and the woman looked freaked out, and the guy looked freaked out. Her eyes and his eyes are solid black like the first guy's were. It's just solid black. She acted like something bad had got a hold of her. She came at me reaching her arms out. And then I noticed all the homeless people around me all had solid black eyes now. It occurred to me that I was pretty lucky me not having eaten that black oily shit they call black stew. I figured it must have been some kind of alien shit after all. This is how they're trying to kill us, man. They're trying to kill us all. They're putting it in everything. Hell, the whole Lower East Side was going crazy. I was the only one left who hadn't eaten the black stew. I had to run to save my life. Everybody had eaten it except for me. I run all the way over to Tompkins Square Park. It was just getting dark. Right next to Avenue A there in the dark. In the park there's a tree where I would sleep sometimes up in the tree. The tree, which I called a sleeping tree, stood right there in the middle of a dog run. I climbed up in the tree and I went to sleep, and I woke up at dawn and somebody had a Doberman Pinscher down there running around beneath the tree, but it didn't see me. I was watching its nuts. I hate Doberman Pinscher nuts. They look too tight. Too tight. I wished I could reach down with a long arm and flick his nuts with my fingers. But it was just a wish. I didn't do it. Then I noticed then all over the streets, all the homeless people, their clothes were just laying everywhere. And crawling out from their clothes was this black stuff. It was just running out. It was just oozing everywhere like black goo. It was creepy. I didn't want to get out of my tree. I didn't want to get down out of my tree because of the black goo and because of the Doberman Pinscher's nuts down there. I don't know which one was worse, the nuts or the goo. Perry Carey, very, 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 very cute, very Carey. It was pretty scary. Industry. Thanks for listening to The Black Stew, friends. I hope you enjoyed the story and felt the horror of the actual events from which it arose. I would really appreciate it if you give the story a big thumb up below the video, and I welcome your comments further down. I just ask that when you write your comments, you keep an open mind and respect others. And if you like this channel, feel free to support it by subscribing to it, and please always check back for weekly uploads. Lastly now, amid the noisy, confusing haste of this old world, its ghostly shadows of the past, and its vague uncertainties about the future, strive to stay alive, to be well, and to find the peace in your restless souls. I'm Turk Strongman. Thank you for tuning to Tunnel of Dark Narrations.